What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 32 of Overhand Right Radio. My name is Jason. Of course, sitting across me is my co-host and brother Cole. And today is going to be a good one. We're going to talk about what went down at UFC 221, which was actually, I would have to say, a phenomenal card, considering a lot of people were crapping on it because it didn't have the star-studded names and it wasn't the most stacked card. I thought it lived up to the hype. So we're going to talk about what happened at UFC 221, and we're going to talk about a little news and rumors floating around. And of course, this weekend, big card. You got a big Bellator card on Friday because of Bellator 194. Really marquee matchups, the return of Liam McGeary, Anna Houlihan, Heather Hardy, which we'll dive into. And of course, one of the quarterfinal fights in the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix, which is Roy Nelson versus Matt Mitrione in their rematch, now taking place in Bellator. On Sunday night, we go to Austin, Texas, where UFC Fight Night 126 is being held, and that has a really good main event. So we'll dive into all that. We'll break down the card. We'll give our predictions as always. We'll talk a little news and rumors. But I just want to start off with this, Cole. Of course, UFC 221 happened. The title fight between Yoel Romero and Luke Rockhold. We know the outcome of that. I will talk about that in a second. But right now, I just want to talk about this for a while because I have a lot of people that are saying that it was unfair that Luke lost the fight because of the missed weight of Yoel Romero. As you know, he came in at 188 pounds instead of the 185 limit, which you need for a title fight, and this was an interim title. So the end result, Luke Rockhold would have got the belt if he won. Yoel didn't get the belt. He ended up winning. So there was no interim title given to Yoel Romero. Here's the thing, not a lot of people that didn't watch the weigh-ins forget. Australia, their commission hasn't adopted the early weigh-ins. So usually if this was in California, they get the early weigh-ins around 10 in the morning, and then they weigh in, they rehydrate after that, and then they have the ceremonial weigh-ins. Well, here's the problem. This was old school style. So the ceremonial weigh-ins was when you actually take the weight like they used to do back in the day, a couple of years ago. So that's when we found out Yoel Romero was 188. Of course, he tried to cut weight a little bit, and he came in at 187 when he attempted again. But here's my thing, man. He came in on 2 weeks' notice. He came in and he stepped in and pretty much saved the card because Luke didn't have another opponent really when Robert Whittaker dropped out. So do we give him a little bit of grief knowing that, you know, he came in on 2 weeks' notice, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it was, and he stepped in and took this fight rather than, oh man, he's unprofessional, and just hounding on him? I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he did come in on short notice. He is a huge 185er. He's not a small guy. He has a big physique on him. He carries around a lot of muscle. And in the end, you know what? It's 3 pounds. Yeah, you should be professional, common weight at all times. But in the end, he did have a short camp. What happened was, you know, UFC probably phoned him. He probably discussed with his nutritionist, his coaches, his manager, and all this stuff. And they said, hey, look, we can probably get him down to 185, but it's going to be hard. So if he comes in a little bit overweight, don't be too mad at him. And I don't think the UFC was because there was no backlash really on him. We've seen worse.
Well,
with full camps too, right?
For a championship belt, even though it is an interim, you should come in on weight. Again, it was short notice, so you do give a little leeway. He did, you know, quote unquote, kind of save this card. I mean, if Rockhold didn't have an opponent for this card, I mean, this card would have it would have tanked really, really bad. But I'm gonna hit it from a different angle. It doesn't hurt Romero, right? This didn't hurt him. He won the fight, and okay, he didn't get the interim belt slapped around his waist, but who cares? I mean, which one of these interim guys really was like, oh wow, I won, you know, I'm a champion now.
Yeah.
No, it's like you got the belt, you got the champion, but the interim, right? You have to beat the actual real champion.
Yeah.
So it truly did it hurt Romero to weigh in a little bit because he lost some of his purse. He doesn't get a second place championship belt.
Yeah.
But besides that, he's still gonna fight Whittaker again.
Yeah, exactly.
He's still getting the shot he wants.
And like you said, I mean, the interim title, no, Max Holloway didn't win it and go, oh my God, I'm the greatest featherweight. No, he knew he had to go through Jose Aldo. You know, it was stuff like this when Conor won the interim, just speaking of guys recently. So yeah, he didn't technically walk out with the belt, but I don't think really. Honestly, I don't think the fans care too much. I think some of the fans are like, "Good, we don't have another interim title holder in the record books," and also I don't think UL cares because, like you said, he's going to get the rematch of Robert Whittaker, who he lost to in his last bout before Rockhold, and I don't think really anybody's affected by this too much. Now, when you look at UL versus Robert Whittaker, I think that's a great matchup. Look, their last fight was a very highly competitive fight, and that's what's going to happen. So that should take place sometime, maybe fall, summer, it depends. Because
I think Dana White said summer.
Yeah, in the summer.
Because Romero, there were reports that his leg was broken, possibly lower leg was broken. Those X-rays, MRI, all that came back negative, Which is good. So it looks like it will happen sometime in the summertime.
Yeah, and looking at from the loser of this, Rockhold, he's in a little bit of a hard place right now because he lost to Bisping. He came back. He beat David Branch. He was supposed to fight for the title. He took this fight. Kudos to him because a lot of people wouldn't do this. And he got knocked out by, a pretty brutal knockout by Romero with the left hand. And you sit here now with Rockhold and you go, okay, you're coming off a loss. There's a title match set up right now. You got other guys coming up the middleweight ranks. What's next for Rockhold? I have an idea who I would like him to fight, and it would be a really good title eliminator fight. But what do you think next for Rockhold? I know there's stuff going around. Alexander Gustafsson wants to fight him, but I think if Rockhold has title thoughts in his mind, and he wants to get back to the middleweight title at 185, then going up and fighting Gustafsson isn't the right thing to do. What do you think?
Well, just from watching that fight, you and watching the David Branch fight and watching the Bisping fight, Luke Rockhold seems to have a slight deficiency in his stand-up. Right? It's not when you see Luke Rockhold on the ground grappling, there is a smoothness and an effortlessness to it. He knows what to do. He's comfortable in any position. He knows how to put other people in uncomfortable situations. When guys are striking at him that have explosive power and can really beat him to the punch, no pun intended, he has trouble with that. He's also, this has me also thinking, man, is he a little chinny?
Well,
right?
That being said, you look at it and Yoel Romero's a big, powerful puncher. So he got caught. Is he chinny? I don't think he has a weak chin to the point where we're going, man, if he gets touched by a pillow, like he's not Chuck Liddell late in his career, right?
He's not getting touched and going down. But I'm saying he's now been rocked in three of his last. Well, sorry, he's been KO'd in two of his last three.
And David Branch caught him with a good one.
David Branch hurt him. Had him backing up due to strikes where Rockhold had to take him down.
I think the shots were good. I mean, the David Branch one, he did get clipped, but he wasn't, he wasn't on baby deer legs. He wasn't stumbling around the cage. But
doesn't that concern you?
It does concern me, but I think that more or less has to do with striking defense more than having a weak chin. Having a weak chin is when, you get clipped or
that's what I'm saying.
You get hit by a hard punch and you're wobbly. He got hit by some hard punches and,
But that's
he didn't get knocked out right away.
That's the way to get worse chin.
It adds up over time.
So what I'm saying is there's a deficiency in his striking defense.
I agree, but then again, he's going against the top dogs at 185, right? He's going against the top dogs at 185.
True, but if you want to be a world champion, you got to figure that out.
I agree. Well, I think the fight to make with him, going back to our topic of what's next for Luke Rockhold, I think the fight to make with him is Chris Wyman. I think you do the second fight with that because you look at it and you look at the rankings and you go, okay, you have the title match set in stone. We know Yoel Romero, Robert Whittaker in the summer is going to happen. But then you have Chris Wyman coming off a big win when he fought Kelvin Gastelum. And Luke Rockhold is in that situation where he needs to fight a guy within the top 5 to stay relevant if he wants to go towards the title. Of course, you have Jacare in there, but, you could do Jacare again, but I don't think Luke wants to do that because, he could, but he already beat Jacare in the past in Strikeforce. I think Chris Wyman, he knows, he has confidence. He's beat him before when he won the title. I think that's a good fight to make. Now, is that a good fight for Chris Wyman? I think so too. look, the only guy, Luke Rockhold, still ranked number 3. Chris Weidman's number 4. Jacare, I think Jacare is a little bit of a tough matchup for both guys, and I think Luke Rockhold and Chris Weidman, I think that's a favorable matchup for Luke Rockhold. Chris Weidman, would he take that fight with Luke Rockhold, do you think, again?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's saying that he's the only one, or he came out on Twitter and said that he's the only clean one, he's the only one that's, injury-free, blah, 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 blah. Don't quote me on what he said, but he's basically saying he should have, the number 1 contendership to the title, right? He's talking about Romero and Rockhold and all that stuff. So if he wants to get there, yeah, I mean, Luke Rockhold is a guy who's been in basically 2 of the last, discount the GSP Bisbee thing, he's been in like 2 of the last 3 or 4 title or number 1 contender matches. So he's a top guy. So if Chris Weidman wants to get back up there, which he does, yeah, I think it's a perfect fight.
Yeah, you know what? I'm saying Luke and Chris, but now I'm thinking maybe we should do Chris Weidman, Jacare, just possibly because I think Chris Weidman would rather versus Jacare than Luke Rockhold again. Maybe a better matchup for Luke Rockhold would be Kelvin Gastelum. I think that might be a favorable matchup for him. What do you think? He would have the height and the reach, and he would be the bigger guy. And don't forget, Kelvin Gastelum's ranked number 5. So you kind of have a shuffle in between with Yoel and Gastelum in that 1 to 5 range where you have Jacare, Luke, Chris, and Kelvin, and 2 of those guys coming off losses, 2 of those guys coming off wins. You can't match up Chris Weidman and Gastelum again. I don't know. It's a little bit of a right now. If you're not in the title picture in the middleweight division, it's kind of hazy right now. You don't have a clear vision.
It's going to be Yoel and Whitaker.
Yes.
Who I think should be fighting for the number 1 contendership after that, in my personal opinion, is Jacare and Kelvin.
Really?
Yes. I think Kelvin...
But Kelvin's coming off a loss to Weidman.
No, he knocked out Bisping.
Right.
He knocked out Bisping.
Yeah. That was such a quick fight.
Who was the former champ.
But can you put Kelvin over Chris if Chris beat him last summer?
Yeah, but...
I don't think you can do that.
To me, I'd rather see Kelvin get a shot at the top 5.
Really? I would rather do Chris Weidman, Jacare.
Are you doing that because of rankings, or are you doing that because of fun fight?
I'm doing that because of rankings and Chris Weidman beat Kelvin Gastelum.
Because to me, Gastelum versus Rockhold, I think Gastelum wins that.
Really?
Yes. I think
you're high on the Gastelum train, eh?
I mean, he's got hands. Listen, if Jacare, Luke Rockhold, Chris Weidman, Yoel, any of those guys stand with Kelvin Gastelum, I don't know if they can win that fight. In all seriousness,
Kelvin did clip Chris.
I don't know if they can beat Kelvin Gastelum. If it's a pure stand-up fight, I don't know if they can beat him. And, and that's why I put him up there.
So going with Jacare, Luke, Chris Weidman, Kelvin, you got 2 matches. How are you pairing them up? I think number 1 contender fight, Jacare, Chris, and I think Rockhold and Kelvin Gastelum fight. Put them on the same card.
I don't think there's a wrong move, but personally, I would do Kelvin Souza.
I don't have to agree with that. But we can agree to disagree. Wouldn't be the first time. But, I mean, you look at that, and Rockhold, loses again. I know the AKA family's a little down, but he'll be back, man. He's one of the best in the world. And don't forget, he's fighting the best of the best. So he'll be back. But I think the middleweight division, there's 2 fights you got to make. One has to be clearly for the number 1 contendership, and Luke Rockhold has to do a fight to get him back on track, which I think he wins his next fight, because I think...
How do you think that Yoel Whitaker goes now? Remember, this is number 2. This is the rematch.
Well, I think with Yoel, he's got he really understood that, hey, in those final rounds, championship rounds, I gassed. And, however you slice it, they gave Robert Whitaker, I should say, the decision 3-2. Right?
Yeah.
By decision.
Because of those last
3 rounds of 2. So that 5th round really mattered in the end, and Yoel just wasn't cardio-wise to that. So I think he's going to work on that game. I think Robert Whitaker's confident. Look, you beat a guy, you did a really good job at takedown defense in his last fight. Phenomenal job of that. And you had a really good striking. Seeing this going...
But Yoel was... decently dominant in the first 2.
He was. So this is a close fight, man. This is a toss-up. I think we're still going to get a competitive fight. Dang, I don't know who I'm picking in that one.
I
have no clue. Early prediction, I have no clue.
Early prediction, I would probably go Whitaker because I think he can push the pace, which will be on Yoel's cardio disadvantage. And then I think he already knows what Yoel feels like a bit, and I think that's a big advantage. But it will be a close fight.
Yeah, and I think those are between the two best middleweights in the world right now. So that's an extremely good title fight, and we don't know when it's going to go down, but hopefully sometime in the summer. Right now, you have to apologize to Curtis Blades because you said there's no way that Curtis Blades was going to beat Mark Hunt in the co-main event of UFC 222. Now, I'll admit, I made a mistake. I thought Curtis Blades was going to stand up.
That was a ridiculous statement.
Stop.
That was a ridiculous statement.
I said Curtis Blades is going to stand up, use his foot movement and his speed to beat Mark Hunt on the feet. Well, when he got clipped by Mark Hunt and he was wobbly, I was screaming for a takedown. Yeah. Curtis Blades. I went, holy crap, get a takedown or else you're getting your ass knocked out. Now he did. There was clearly an advantage of just pure wrestling. Curtis Blades comes from a wrestling background. Mark Hunt obviously was going for tons of rides, getting slammed down to the mat. And there was just a clear, Mark Hunt couldn't stop his shot. Clearly as that. But I will admit, I was wrong that Curtis Blades could beat Mark Hunt setting up. But you must apologize.
That's a ridiculous statement. Mine wasn't that ridiculous.
You said there was no way that Curtis Blades wins this fight.
There's sharing a bit. I'm gonna stay with it a bit. I'll apologize and say that Blade
30-26, bud.
He was smart enough to know where he could win this fight.
Well,
in the fight,
yes,
I'll give him that. The IQ was I don't know if it was his coaches telling him or him, but in the first round when he got rocked, he immediately went for the takedown.
And you know what? Being rocked as he was, landing a good double A like that, I was surprised. That took a lot of power.
He was one good punch on the chin away from going out.
Yeah, he was very wobbly.
So I was wrong about that, but to me, it's more what Mark Hunt didn't do.
Yeah, Mark Hunt, I mean, he didn't really put up a fight when it comes to takedown defense. Mark Hunt has had a problem with the wrestlers over the time. You look at the Stipe fight, now you look at this. He's had a little bit of a problem with wrestlers. Don't forget, he comes from a striking background, man. Right? Kickboxing background.
Here's the thing. When you had him rocked, listen, there's two approaches when you have a person rocked. One approach is you go
smell blood in the water and you pull a Vanderlei.
Smell blood in the water and you go caveman style and you just run at him and throw crazy punches and you hope something lands. Here's the good side of that. You'll be on him. He won't be able to breathe and recover. Okay. Horrible side of this. If he is a wrestler and you are not good at wrestling and he shoots a double A and your arms are above your head swinging overhand rights, you're probably going to get your ass taken down. Mm-hmm. That's just the reality of the fact, no matter who you are. Okay? The second style is to be patient. Pick your shots. Keep them against the cage. What's the advantage? Well, you won't get taken down. You'll stay enough defensive, but enough aggressiveness where he can't fully recover and you're still touching him. Bam, bam, bam. You look for the one KO shot. Disadvantage. You might not get him out of there, right? But for Mark Hunt, a guy who clearly has a disadvantage at wrestling. Listen, what I predicted in this fight was Mark Hunt was going to clip him and knock him out. I was damn close.
Yeah. You were close. That shot that landed was a hard shot from Mark Hunt. I called
the first round.
Yeah, you did.
But Mark Hunt made the mistake. See what happens? He made the mistake of being wild and getting taken down. And what I think happened is Curtis Blades said, okay, I'm going to take him down. And then realized when he took him down, it's like, oh, this guy's no shot on the ground with me.
And that's right? That's the one thing. People are coming out and saying Curtis Blades is a boring fighter. I understand that if you're a guy at the bar want to see a knockout with his buddies and, going, holy shit, he got his ass knocked out. But if you're really thinking about this as a fighter, Curtis Blades took him down and went, I got clipped in the first round. Look, is it my best option to stand up with this guy? Probably not, because I just been rocked and I was wobbly. And then he took him down and he went, I have a clear advantage on the ground. So coming out in the second, I believe it was the second or third, I believe it was the third, he took him down with a double leg and just used his wrestling ability.
And if you're Mark Hunt and you're his team, and Curtis Blades, you see the takedown happen, And you're watching this fight and going, man, there's a big discrepancy between Curtis Blades and Mark Hunt on the ground. So Mark Hunt comes out in the second. What do you think Curtis Blades is going to do? I literally said to you, I'm like, he won't throw a strike. Curtis Blades will not throw a jab. He will not shadow box 10 feet away from Mark Hunt. Why would he?
And the thing is, I think when he came out in the third round and landed that double leg, I think Mark Hunt was just so tired he couldn't stuff it. Because Mark Hunt was trying. It wasn't like he was laying down pulling guard. No, he was trying. He was just tired.
Here's the thing. What Mark Hunt did is he didn't protect the takedown defense at all.
No.
And against a guy like Blades, once you get down, you're not getting back up. Yeah. So Mark Hunt had to be very tactical in that sense, and he just wasn't. Curtis Blades, I mean, the guy didn't even attempt to throw a legit punch after the first round. He didn't. Because he realized, I'll wait, I'll see the opening, I'll take him down, I'll win the round. And that's all she wrote.
Yeah. Looking at this now, Mark Hunt said he wants to do a couple fights out of the UFC. Him and Dana and the UFC haven't had the best relationship. That's documented. Mm-hmm. Now he's saying he's going to go over. I think probably Bellator is the best landing spot. But the interesting thing about this too is Curtis Blades' contract is up. And he said, look, if the UFC doesn't give me a good payday, I'm going to go over and explore my options at Bellator 2. So I think the UFC has a young up-and-coming talent in Curtis Blades, and they need to lock him down if they want to maintain the, new guys coming up the ranks in the heavyweight division. Also, Mark Hunt, I think he's going to go. He's going to do fights in Rise, and I think he's going to do fights in Bellator. Too bad he didn't make it into the Bellator Grand Prix, because I think that would be a lot of fun. But this is his last fight in the UFC.
No, he's got two more.
Mark Hunt does?
Yeah, he's got two more, I think.
I'll edit that out.
2 or 3.
I'll edit it out. Never mind.
Yeah, no, should I just say?
No, that's fine.
I'll say. Yeah, he's got 2 or 3 more fights in the UFC. I have a fun fight for him next. A very fun fight.
Shoot.
Mark Hunt, Francis Ngannou.
Wow. That would actually
would be a sick fight. Because both of them ain't going to try to take it down.
No.
You got Ngannou who wants to strike. Mark Hunt wants to strike. And Mark Hunt's still in that top echelon, has a name where Ngannou can fight in. And if Ngannou wins, it's a name he's beat, a legit striker he's beat. I can put him right back in the conversation of the top 5. And for Mark Hunt, same thing. If he could possibly beat Ngannou, he can move back up the ladder that way. And you never know with a guy like Mark Hunt. He says he wants out of the UFC after, a few more fights or whatever, his contract, and then wants to do fights overseas, Bellator. But money changes. If you possibly got a title shot, things change. So you never know.
Yeah.
And for Curtis Blades, he's just going to move up the ladder. I think for a matchup next, that is interesting.
You look and, Francis Ngannou's the number 1 contender. You got a guy like Alistar. You got a guy like Fabricio who's booked up, of course, with Volkov coming up in the spring, I believe it is. Do you want him to verse Kane? I think a good fight that Curtis Blades and I would lobby for is maybe Alistar Overeem. I think that's a winnable fight for him, and I think
it's an interesting fight.
It's interesting, and I think he will be the better wrestler in that fight.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
So you don't want to verse someone like Cain Velasquez. I think Alistar Overeem would be a good matchup for Curtis Blades, especially because Alistar is number 2 right now, and that would put you in a good slot to say, hey, I beat Alistar. I'm the next in line.
Fighting again?
Fabrizio's fighting Volkov.
Oh, Volkov.
Yes. Kane's not booked right now.
Volkov is number 8. Man,
Volkov can do a huge jump right here. Yeah.
If he could somehow beat Fabricio, I was gonna say that maybe Blades could verse Fabricio, but man, Volkov's getting an opportunity there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe Alistar.
I think that's a great fight for Curtis.
Alistar's takedowns defense is a bit better. He can also, he would, in clinching situations, he would be 10 times better. And Curtis, he could test his stand-up a bit more with Alistar, but, it would still be a hard go in the striking department. And that's one area you could see if Curtis Blades could get to the point where he could strike very fluently, he could be a dangerous guy for sure.
Yeah, so good fights overall in UFC 221. Of course, you had Jake Matthews winning fight of the night in a really highly competitive fight. Tyson Pedro got the Kimura lock, which I don't think a lot of people had Pedro winning by Kimura. So overall, I think it was a really good. I sat there and watched the Fight Pass prelims. I sat there and watched the Fox Sports 1 TSN where you're watching it prelims. I think overall, very good fights around the board. It was a really good card. A lot of people underrated it, thinking, man, it's not the best card. But I think it showed out, and it was probably one of the most entertaining cards of the year. Now, looking forward to what we have this weekend is we got Bellator 194 this Friday going down, and of course the main event is a heavyweight Grand Prix fight between Roy Nelson and Matt Mitrione. But let's start with a fight that I think is very intriguing between Anna Hulaton and Heather Hardy, because not only are they fighting in Bellator, of course they're doing a boxing match as well after this. It's a 2-fight contract in MMA and boxing, which I think is very unique, and I think both of them are, that's something not a lot of people would do, and I love how people would do that, especially boxers and people coming from a boxing background to MMA. Now, when you look at this fight, it's very intriguing because they're both coming from a boxing background. Heather Hardy's 1-1. Of course, she lost her last fight with that. We all saw it with the nose bleeding. We saw it all over Instagram, all that on social media. Anna Hulaton, made her debut on the same card, and she lost that one as well. She's 2-3 going into this. But I think this is very intriguing because really it's MMA, but with two highly accomplished boxers. Who do you have winning this fight? I was shocked. I was personally shocked when I saw the odd makers be such a heavy favorite for Heather Hardy. Yes, she's a very good boxer. Yes, she has a lot of hype around her. But to discount a world champion boxer like Anna Hulaton, I thought was a little shocking. Who do you have win this fight? Because I know who I have. And
Yeah, I got Anna.
I got Anna too.
And I'll say this because I think she's more well-rounded.
Yes.
Now, she is a boxer, but I think Heather Hardy is a better boxer. But what you saw in Heather Hardy's last fight was she went against a kickboxer. And when she tried to box the kickboxer, she had major problems. She just didn't look comfortable with knees coming at her, elbows coming at her, kicks coming at her. Right? This girl that she versed was not very accomplished, not well-known. I believe didn't have a lot of MMA fights, but you could see she had difficulty with the non-boxing range, the kickboxing range. She had a problem with the kicks coming at her, right? It's hard. She basically went into a mixed martial arts fight with only boxing, and that's just not going to work, right? That's you have to gain more skills. Now, she's very new to the sport, only 2 fights. How much has she progressed? I don't know. I'm not in her camp, so I can only go off what I saw last time and what I think she might improve on. I think Anna just has more in her all-around toolbox to win. I also think Anna, even though she comes from a boxing background, she probably knows more ground game than Hardy. So if Anna took Hardy to that, I think even though Anna's not, she's a boxer. She's not a jiu-jitsu whiz. I think she'd be way more comfortable than Hardy would be on the ground. Yeah,
and I would have to agree. That's why I was so shocked when I saw that Anna was such an underdog. To me, I base this on, boxing, this is probably going to be standing up, but I do think experience and being able to have an all-around well game like Anna has, because she has 5 fights in MMA when Heather Hardy only has 2, I do think that Anna Hulaton will be able to win the fight in more areas, and that's why I guess we both pick her. But I was very shocked to see she was the dog. Either way, this is going to be a really good fight. I think they're leaning towards Heather Hardy because she's kind of Bellator homegrown, 2 fights in Bellator. Yeah. When Anna came from 1FC and lost her first Bellator 185, lost her debut at a split decision, a really competitive fight, by the way. So, but we have Anna Hulaton. I don't know if you were going to agree with me, but yeah, I was shocked when this.
Now, if Anna tries to purely box with Heather Hardy, she's going to have problems.
Yeah, both women are going to have problems if they try to box.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think Heather Hardy's probably the better boxer, but if Anna can incorporate boxing with kicks, boxing with clinch, boxing with takedown. It will throw Heather Hardy off being a true boxer, right? Because what I said in the or what I said just a few moments ago was Hardy has problem with the mixture of mixed martial arts, with dealing with all the kicks, the takedowns, the elbows. She wants a pure boxing fight, and if Anna gives her a pure boxing fight, Anna will have problems. But if Anna can mix it up in a mixed martial artist way with takedowns, knees, clinch, all that stuff, dirty boxing. Heather's going to want to stay in boxing range. Will Anna stay in boxing range with her? Will she bounce out and in? I just think that's something to watch for sure.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. Now moving on to the next fight, we have Lee McGeary coming off his loss to Linton Vassell. Only second loss of his career, but he wants to get back to the winning column. And of course, he is versing Nemkov. To me, this is an intriguing fight because you look at Nemkov and you're going, man, he's jumping up in competition. Lee McGeary is one of the best that is in Bellator at the light heavyweight division, former champion. I have McGeary winning this just based off his jiu-jitsu, based off on his ground skills. Because when you look at Nemkov, most of his wins are by TKO. He only has one submission win under his belt, so he's a striker. I think McGeary's ground game will be the factor in this, and I just think we kind of see the same story kind of in Bellator a little bit. You have these guys on the rise, and they're doing good, and then all of a sudden they hit the upper echelon like a guy like McGeary, and usually, for the most part, those guys aren't successful trying to climb up the mountain and go to the summit and try to be victorious.
Well, Nemkov is a guy who was fighting in Ryzen, I think, 2 or 3 fights ago. So, and then he comes to Bellator, which is a move up. Right, in promotions, you're versing better guys when you move up Horizon to Bellator. Sorry if I offend anyone when I say that, but it's just a fact. When you move to the UFC, you verse better depth. So he's having that against him. Next, he's going against McGeary, who has seen better opponents than him, who has been in world championship fights. So again, like you said, Nemkov is a pure striker. He's probably been in there with a lot of guys that don't have the well-roundedness and the experience of a leader McGeary. McGeary, same thing with Anna. McGeary has more places to win this fight than Nemkov does. It's simple. McGeary can take him to a place on the ground, especially with McGeary's jiu-jitsu, where he is just not comfortable, and there is a huge gap in the level of the ground game. McGeary is also taller, rangier. If he can use his jab well, he can be very successful as well.
Yeah, I would have to agree. So we're both going McGeary?
Yeah, both going McGeary.
We're agreeing a lot this round. Let's move on to the main event here. Of course, the Bellator Grand Prix, one of the first round fights between Roy Nelson and Matt Mitrione. And Matt Mitrione. And it's very intriguing to see how both men will come out. Because you look at Roy Nelson, he made his Bellator debut, Bellator 193, and he won in a unanimous decision, but it was not a pretty fight. It wasn't what we used to Roy Nelson victories. The right overhand. Roy Nelson had to use his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu and kind of grind one out. Which usually Roy Nelson, we see the knockout when it comes to his victory. Of course, when you look at Matt Mitrione, he had the Fedor Emelianenko knockout. One against Ole Thompson again with another knockout before that. So he's coming off 2 great knockout victories. The key factor in this fight for me is the gas tank of Roy Nelson, and just Matt Mitrione will be the more technical, will be the faster, and will have more strike outputs than Roy Nelson. And I think Matt Mitrione will use popping jabs, will have leg kicks, and just has more in his arsenal than Roy Nelson does to win this fight. So I would have to go Matt Mitrione. I think Matt Mitrione, it's hard to knock out Roy Nelson, so it probably won't happen. I mean, the only man to do is the man we were talking about before, Mark Hunt. But I have Matt Mitrione winning this, probably 30-27. I think he's just going to put on a striking clinic, and he's just had the leg kicks and being the faster of the two men. I think he wins this pretty easily.
Roy Nelson's got a 10% chance of winning this.
10%, that's it.
Hell, that might be too high.
No, he can clip him. He can clip him, dude.
Roy Nelson is the ultimate one-trick pony. Now, has that trick been very good over his UFC career? Yes. Has it been very successful against big, mobile, technical striking heavyweights? No, it's been really, really bad.
And that's what I was going to say to you.
Horrible.
When he versed Stipe Miocic, of course, Stipe was younger, but Stipe, technical,
Yeah.
fast boxer.
Young.
Daniel Cormier,
Yeah.
faster than him. Alistair Overeem was the same. Mark Hunt, Josh Barnett. You look at the Volkov fight, and long, lanky guys. So I understand what you're saying.
So I think it's going to be the same storyline, right? It's different fight, different guys, same storyline. Matt Mitrione is in the prime of his career. If you saw his last two fights, you're looking at a guy who's just I think personally right now, if he was in the UFC, he'd be a top 5 UFC heavyweight.
I would have to agree. And the thing about Matt Mitrione is we're seeing he came from kind of this wrestler, transitioning MMA from football, and now he's becoming this more polished, slick striker. And we really see that in the Ole Thompson he's putting together with the power and got the TKO victory there. The Fedor Emelianenko, yeah, he got popped and got dropped too, but the power is going with the technical striking, and he's putting it all together. And I would have to agree with 17 fights under his belt. Yeah, he's 39, but his age is 39. But when it comes to the game, he was young in his career in the UFC, and now with Bellator, his last couple fights in the UFC, and Bellator, like you said, he's coming into his prime. So I like Matt Mitrione in this fight. You would have to agree with me, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Matt Mitrione, the guy must be laughing right now because he's only got to worry about one thing with Roy Nelson. Now, I know I'm kind of slashing Roy Nelson to pieces here. Roy Nelson, I think, personally, in his last, handful of fights, he has only been that one-trick pony. And he needs to evolve. Remember, Roy Nelson is a legit ground guy.
Yes.
And he has completely abandoned that.
I would have to agree with the last couple fights.
When have you seen...
Well, the last fight, he had to grind it out, but he wasn't...
He's not going there to finish a fight.
Yeah, which I would like to see more of him. Because even you look back at the Ultimate Fighter, he was that against guys that clearly he had advantage over. He didn't even worry about the striking.
Exactly. If I don't think Roy Nelson has much chance of taking Matt down, but if he can, the percentages of him winning in a fight where he's on top of Matt Mitrione go skyrocketing. All of a sudden, that 10% I gave Roy Nelson probably goes to 70 or 80 instantly for that round or that time he's on top.
And this being said, this is a rematch because Roy Nelson has beat Matt Mitrione. Of course, that was in 2012, though.
That was a different Matt Mitrione.
Exactly.
That was a way different Matt Mitrione.
So this is what a lot of people that might be like, oh, he's 1-0 over him. This was Matt Mitrione in his younger days, and like we're saying, he's becoming the more polished guy. He's becoming the more slick striker, and he's in his prime. So how do you think this is going? I got 30-27 Matt Mitrione. What about you?
Yeah, he won't knock out Roy. Roy's got a
granite chin. For
Roy's best attribute is his chin. Let's be honest. It keeps him in fights he probably shouldn't be in. Matt Mitrione 30-27. I think Roy might clip him, might hurt him a little, but I just think trying to land that right when people know it's coming, it's just hard. I mean, you could pick any sport, okay? Any sport you want. Let's go basketball. If you know the guy's shooting the three, that's his best weapon. He's always going to shoot the three. It's always coming. He's never going to try to drive the lane and go for the bucket. You have an easier time defending him. It's easier to pass the test when you know the questions and you have a possibility at knowing the answers as well. It's just easier. You could be the stupidest kid in the room. It's just easier. So when I look at Roy, if he comes out with that single one-trick pony game plan, Matt Mitrione knows the answer to the question. He knows what you're doing instantly. Roy Nelson has to evolve and mix it up. I'm not saying abandon the right hand. Don't. That's your greatest asset with your chin. But mix it up. Set things up. Low kicks. I believe Roy can be successful with low kicks in this. Stop the mobility of Matt. Because if Roy Nelson can get Matt Mitrione from not moving and corner him, your chances of landing the right hand or a big punch go up through this roof. There are things Roy Nelson can do to make his percentages of landing the punch he wants to land go up. But in his last few fights, he hasn't done that. So I got Matt Mitrione 30-27. You might even see a 10-8.
Yeah, and look, whoever wins this is a big fight for both men, just because whoever wins this gets the winner of the fight that's going down sometime in May between Ryan Bader and King Mo. So whoever wins this is technically in the semifinal rounds or be versing a true light heavyweight. So, you know, I like Matt Mitrione in this fight, but don't discount Roy Nelson's right hand. And like you said, his chin keeps him in fights. So that's Bellator 194. Of course, the next night, you got UFC Fight Night 126 between Cerrone and Yancey going down in the main event. Of course, let's start off with the co-main event. This is a 6-fight main card, so you got good guys like Sage Northcutt on there, Thiago Alves on there, James Vick and Francis Trinaldo is a very interesting fight in the, I believe that's the fourth fight on the main card. Let's go to the This is a very interesting fight. Marcin Tybura, we saw him in November. He lost unanimous decision to Fabricio Verdum in a one-sided fight. Didn't really look that good. Of course, he was coming off the win of Andre Arlovski. But both these men are coming off losses because Derek Lewis is coming off the loss of TKO punches to Mark Hunt. And remember, that's when Derek Lewis said, I'm retiring, I might go. And of course, a couple weeks later, he said, nah, heat of the moment, I'm coming back. Very interesting fight because I look at Marcin and he struggled with Fabricio Verdum striking and really got dominated in that fight. And same with Derek Lewis with Mark Hunt. So both men, their last outing, didn't look too good. So I think this is a big bounce back fight for Marcin and for Derek. When it comes to who will win this fight, I look at it and I go, clear advantage in power to Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis knocks people out. We saw it with Travis Brown. We saw it with, Gabriel Gonzaga. The list goes on. Marcin, though, he doesn't really, in his couple first UFC, he's got the TKOs and stuff, but even against Andre Arlovski, Andre Arlovski probably should have knocked him out if he had the power, but I give the power advantage to Derek Lewis. When it comes to speed, Derek Lewis sometimes struggles with really fast technical strikers. Do I think Marcin's that guy? Marcin's not the fastest or the most technical, but he does possess maybe a speed advantage over Derek Lewis. Who do you have win this fight? Because I'm tossed up. I don't think this fight's going to go to the ground. I really don't, unless Marcin wants to take it there. But I don't think he can take Derek Lewis down because Derek Lewis is strong as hell and has really good takedown defense. But when it comes, I think this is going to stay standing. When it comes to who's win this fight, you go first. I'm still thinking a little bit.
Derek Lewis, second round KO.
You think he's going to knock him out, really?
He's going to knock him out clean.
I think the longer this fight goes, the more it benefits Marcin. What about you?
That's a fair assessment based on Derek Lewis's cardio problems. Because
you look at Derek Lewis and you go, okay, Travis Brown ended in the second round. Then you look at, of course, he
doesn't go away easily. Like, you look at the Mark Hunt, you look at the Travis Brown. Travis Brown was a comeback. Mark Hunt had to basically unload the tank to get him out of there.
Yeah, but the thing with... the one things I look at is the third round in the Roy Nelson fight, which is a highly competitive fight that he won by split decision, and the Mark Hunt, because he did have cardio problems in that fight. And ultimately, in the Mark Hunt one, it just led to... He couldn't land that strike, and he just got out-welted. So that's the one thing I struggle with Derek Lewis.
I take Derek Lewis because of two things. One thing is, I think he's versus the better competition. Second, though, which is most importantly, is I think he has, to me, he's the fighter that has the one thing that can end the fight.
Yes.
And that's his power.
Yes, I would agree.
His punching power. Marcin, to me, doesn't have that great attribute. Is he a great wrestler? Nah, not really. Great striker? Yeah. He's above average all-around game. But I'm looking for something in Marcin where I'm like, if he does this, he'll beat Derek Lewis. And I just can't find it, right? Now, I might be wrong. He might take Derek Lewis down, TKO his ass, and I might be going, oh, well, there it is. But up to this date, I haven't seen something where I'm like, if Marcin does this, he will win. He could strike it there with Derek Lewis. Yes, he could. Does he have a slight speed advantage? True. But if he gets hit like he did in the Verdum fight, don't know if you can take those punches from Derek Lewis. Okay, can he take a guy like Derek Lewis down? A little dicey, right? He's a great all-around guy, but he doesn't have that one attribute where I'm like, if he goes there, Lewis is screwed. Now for Lewis, I think that's True. I think he has that one attribute in striking power. If he can corner and frustrate and make Marcin give him something that Marcin shouldn't. Sort of a weakness in the striking defense. If he can find that, he'll be able to land the power punch and stop the fight. Now, the other way this fight could go, if I wasn't taking Derek Lewis on a KO in the second, I could see this going the full 5, and in the 4th and 5 kind of being a sloppy war, and maybe someone drops then. But I would agree with you. The first and second rounds are more dangerous for Marcin because of Lewis's power.
Yeah.
If they go later, I don't know if he has an advantage later. Maybe a bit because of the cardio, but I think definitely that Lewis power will diminish to where he won't be as worried about it.
That being said, though, it is a 3-round fight, so...
Oh, is it?
Yes, it's a 3-round.
Right,
Don't forget, it's not the main event.
Ooh, okay. So
it's looking better for Derek because he doesn't have to go those 5 rounds.
That does look better for Derek Lewis.
I'm gonna go Derek Lewis.
I can see going decision too.
I'm gonna go 29-28.
Okay. Fair.
Not split unanimous. That's what I have.
Do you have this fight completely standing up? I do.
I think Marcin might try to.
If he gets hit,
look for the takedown.
He gets hit once,
yeah,
maybe.
Look for the takedown. I also think that Marcin could put output for Derek Lewis, and maybe. Then again, Derek Lewis is not a big kicker. Marcin kind of likes to kick a little bit, so I think leg kicks might be a big factor for Marcin. But I think this is going to be a really competitive fight, though.
Well, I think Marcin's more technical.
I'm a little shocked that Derek Lewis is a dog here, but considering just rankings and level of competition and stuff like that. But I'm going Derek Lewis 29-28 unanimous decision.
Yeah, I'm going second round TKO. I think he'll land it. He'll land it in the hometown.
Yeah.
He landed in the hometown.
Yeah,
I believe it.
His home state of Texas. Now let's move on to the main event because we have Donald
Texas.
Cerrone versus Yancey. And of course, Yancey is coming off that big fight of the night with Alex Oliveira. And he's stringing together 3 wins against Sean Spencer, Eric Silva, and Alex Oliveira. And Donald Cerrone, of course, is coming off 3 losses. That's weird to think about when you think about Donald Cerrone. 3 losses.
But who are they to?
Jorge Masvidal,
Okay.
Robbie Lawler, Darren Till.
Not bad company if you're going to take L's.
Yeah, exactly. But I think out of those last men we mentioned, I think Yancey, this is no disrespect to Yancey, I think he's a hell of a fighter. But I think Yancey is the most, out of the last 3 you look, and you look on Donald Cerrone, those are tough fights for him. With Yancey, I think this is a winnable fight for him. And I say this, Yancey's going to want to put the pressure on him. He's going to want to try to make it a brawl. He's going to want to land a knockout shot. I think Donald Cerrone has to use his foot movement, use the leg kicks, land the strikes, and drag this fight as long as he can. We're used to Donald Cerrone winning. He gets a nice knockouts and all that stuff. The head kick of Rick Story. Yeah, he's beautiful when he gets a knockout. But I think don't get into a brawl with Yancey. Because if you get clipped, that's not good. And we've seen Donald Cerrone... Well, more than late, to be honest, because you look at the RDA fight he had, then, the Masvidal, he got clipped lots and got lost TKO. Robbie Lawler, out of the gate, he got rocked in that first round. Darren Till, of course, put the pressure on him and knocked him out. So if I'm Donald Cerrone, I want to get into that groove. I want to kind of take the first round, don't go balls to the wall, don't make this a brawl. Take the first round, land some kicks. Use your foot movement and kind of take this fight into deeper waters. I think that's what Donald Cerrone will strive rather than early. I think Yancey's going to want to come out of the gate. He's going to know that maybe Donald Cerrone might not have the most confidence coming off of 3 losses, 2 of them being TKO. So I think Yancey's going to want to put the pressure on him and land that shot against the cage and have Donald Cerrone. Because sometimes Donald Cerrone, when he's pressured, he backs up, he uses the outside. People usually can cut him off and land a shot. So when it comes to this, I think this fight's going to be decision. Now, that being said, I do think Donald Cerrone should go back where he's underrated, and that's the ground game. He's been so used to getting these flashy knockouts that he's kind of dished that. He can trip people. He has very good trips from the clinch, And his takedowns aren't his best, but they're a little underrated. He's not a strong wrestler, but he has good trips from the clinch. And if you can get him down, we see Donald Cerrone. He's a high-level BJJ guy, and he can land rear naked chokes, armbar, all that stuff. And he's also good off his back. And the one thing is the leg kicks as well of Donald Cerrone. Vicious leg kicks, as we know. So I think Donald Cerrone, like we just said, he has more tools to win this fight, I believe. I think Yancey will want to put the pressure on him soon, and Yancey will want to look for the first round KO, first or second round. But I think Donald Cerrone should use that first round, gain a little bit of confidence after coming off these big string of losses. You don't want to get in your own head. You want to gain your confidence a little bit. Use those kicks. Don't be afraid to clinch it up and see if you can get the takedown. But ultimately, I have Donald Cerrone winning this 49-46 across the board, unanimous decision. And I think this is a huge fight for Donald Cerrone too, because man, you can't come off 4 losses. But I think Yancey will give him, and I think Yancey will test his chin once or twice. But in the end, I just think Donald Cerrone has more tools, and I think those leg kicks and possibly the takedown might be a big factor in this fight.
Well, I'm going to start off by saying this. Yancey in his last fight impressed the hell out of me.
Amazing last fight.
He showed me the heart and the will to win versus a dangerous guy. A very all-around dangerous guy. His path to victory, make this fight dirty.
Exactly.
Make this fight dirty.
Pressure Donald Cerrone.
Pressure Donald Cerrone. This might be half the fight. This might be a fight for Yancey where he's going, let's play a little shot for shot. It just might have to be. I know that's like, but Cole, that's not fighting. The point is to hit and not get hit. I understand that, but I don't know if he can win that game with Donald Cerrone, right? Donald has such crisp, beautiful, nice combinations. Yancey's got to look at what Darren Till did. Now, I'm not saying he's Darren Till because I think Darren Till's, much more better right now at this point in his career. I got Darren Till at the point where he could fight for Woodley tomorrow. But, I'm on the Darren Till hype train.
Yeah, you are.
Even before Cerrone, I picked his ass to win. So, but anyways, going back to Yancey. If Yancey can look at that fight and go, Donald backing up when he can't unleash those combinations, different fighter. Completely different fighter. Also, look at the Robbie fight. When Robbie pressured Donald, different fighter. When Robbie took that second round off against Donald Cerrone, Donald was coming forward, landing combinations. Donald you can clearly see when he's backing up and you're the aggressor, he's different. He's a different fighter. He can't land the combinations. He can't do what he wants. He doesn't feel comfortable. When he's coming forward and landing the combinations, picking the angles, picking the distance, he's a much more lethal striker where he can control you. So Yancey needs to make this dirty, which I think he can. Which I think is a big advantage for him and his path to victory. And he's gonna, he's gonna show some good heart.
Yeah.
For Donald Cerrone, basically what I just said that Yancey should do him, Donald has to stop that from doing him. Pick your angles, movement, combinations. Be the more experienced, the crisper guy, throwing the better combinations. Like you said, Donald could also go back to his ground base a little bit. Well, it's not really his base, but we've seen Donald have legit jiu-jitsu and legit ground game. If he feels Yancey's overextending, he could take him down. Work from there. That's a legit possibility. People know Donald as this kickboxer. Right, this crisp kickboxer goes in there and bangs it out. He's got a good ground game.
Yeah, exactly what I was just saying.
And if Yancey's too forward, too aggressive, and leaves the opening, take the shot.
Yeah, like I said, Donald Cerrone is better when it comes trips from clinch, but I do think big factor could be Donald Cerrone on the ground. How do you have this fight winning? Who do you got?
I think Donald Cerrone bounces back. I think he wins this. This is a 5-round fight, right?
Yeah, it's a 5-round fight.
I'm going to go... I don't think he can stop Yancey. I'm going Donald...
I went 49-46.
I think he wins 4 to 5 rounds. I'm going 4-1 for Donald.
Yeah, same.
I think Yancey will get around just due to aggressiveness and pressure. But I just see... If Donald plays to his strengths and eliminate Yancey's aggressiveness with counter strikes, he'll be able to control where this fight takes place, the distance, the angles. If he can do that, Yancey won't have a chance because he just can't outstrike him. He doesn't have that type of striking where he can outstrike him. Now, if Yancey throws caution to the wind, which is you can get counter-striked, that's a legit threat. But if you can do it successfully, wear down Cerrone a bit, you could win that way. You could win just being the aggressor, landing more volumes of punches, getting down and dirty. But I have Donald 4-1 in rounds. I think he's going to get it done.
Yeah, and Donald Cerrone, of course, this is a welterweight fight. Had his good run at lightweight where he fought for the title, lost to RDA, then he went up to welterweight, went on a big streak, but welterweight lately doesn't seem like the best because guys are big, guys are fast, guys are strong, but we'll see if this is bounce back and he'll go on another run at 170 instead of what we used to at 155. Of course, he wants to get back on the top 10, ranked 11. Yancey's ranked number 15 after his win with Oliveira. He wants to move up to the top 10 and keep this streak alive. I think this weekend's going to be phenomenal fights. Bellator 194 and UFC Fight Night 126 from Austin, Texas. There's going to be some really good fights, some good parlays out there. Cool, I put mine in today. I might cash out this weekend. And once again, I
did one too.
It's pretty funny. Last week we were all about. We agreed with Romero, but we disagreed about the co-main event with Curtis Blades and Mark Hunt. So we usually disagree on some. We picked every fight the same. Not the same way, but we had the same result. That's the first, I think. Is it a first? Have we ever predicted two cards and been the same across the board? Probably not.
Like for the whole main event? Like the whole main card?
Yeah.
Maybe a few times.
Maybe a few times.
Definitely the winner, I think.
Yeah.
Now the way that the fight happens, no.
Well, yeah, we're not agreeing on that because I have Derek Lewis by decision. You have getting the TKO. But either way, it's going to be a great weekend of fights. We've got Bellator 194 on the Paramount Network on Friday. And of course, following it up on Sunday is UFC Fight Night 126 from Austin, Texas. Make sure you enjoy the fights. Get your predictions in. Let us know who you got. Those are going to be two really awesome cards. Make sure Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever you listen to podcasts and wherever you are in social media, make sure you follow us and like and subscribe. We also are on YouTube now, so if you like listening on YouTube, make sure you check that out and make sure you go to everywhere and hit the like and the follow button for the Overhand Right, and we'll check you out next time.